This was a group of trained hikers. They cut their way out of their own tent. They walked into lethal cold without their gear. And the official investigation still admits it does not know why. There is no official answer. Not a conclusion. Not a real explanation. Only uncertainty, written directly into the record. In the winter of 1959, 9 experienced hikers began a planned expedition through a remote mountain region. These were not thrill-seekers or novices. They were disciplined, methodical, and accustomed to extreme conditions. Their route was documented. Their supplies were appropriate. Their return date was known. Nothing about this trip suggested carelessness. When that return date passed, concern was measured at first. Weather delays happened. But days passed. Then more. And that's when search teams were dispatched. The campsite was located first. The tent was still there. Partially collapsed under snow. At a distance, it looked usable. Then rescuers noticed the cuts. Clean, deliberate slashes. Made from the inside. Not torn by wind. Not damaged by animals. The hikers had escaped their own shelter. Inside the tent, most essentials remained. Boots. Heavy coats. Food. Outside, footprints led away into the darkness. Some barefoot. Some in socks. They moved together. Down the slope. They didn't scatter. They chose to leave. The first bodies were found near the tree line. 2 had no shoes. Minimal clothing. Clear signs of exposure. Others were discovered between the forest and the tent. Collapsed as if trying to return. The initial determination was hypothermia. On its own, that makes sense. But hypothermia is an ending. It doesn't explain the beginning. It doesn't explain why trained hikers abandoned shelter in the middle of the night. Or why they didn't dress first. Or why they didn't immediately turn back. And it doesn't explain what searchers found later. When the remaining bodies were recovered months later, the tone of the investigation changed. Some injuries were extreme. Crushed ribs. Severe skull fractures. The force required was enormous. On its own, this could be explained by a fall. Or pressure from snow. But combined with everything else, it becomes harder to accept. There were no matching external wounds. No gashes. No evidence of high-speed impact. One victim was missing a tongue. Another had extensive facial tissue loss. Officials attributed this to natural decomposition and animals. That explanation works. Until another detail enters the picture. Some clothing showed elevated radiation levels. Not enough to kill. But enough to document. Again, on its own, this could be incidental. But taken together. The escape. The injuries. The radiation. It stops feeling coincidental. And this was the point where investigators realized they weren't just missing answers. They were missing the event itself. And this is where the explanation officially ends. The case was closed using a single phrase. The hikers died due to a compelling natural force. That phrase appears in the final report. It is never defined. It doesn't describe what happened. Only that something did. It's not an explanation. It's a placeholder. A way to acknowledge that events occurred, without explaining them. For a short time, investigators believed the mystery was solved. Environmental stress, sudden weather changes, disorientation. The explanation brought calm. It suggested panic, but not contradiction. Error, but not confusion. Then the details were reviewed again. And the calm didn't last. Because wind doesn't cause crushing injuries without debris. Confusion doesn't explain coordinated movement downhill. And panic doesn't explain why no one returned for boots. The explanation worked. Until it didn't. Here's the problem investigators keep running into. Each theory explains one action, but never the decision itself. Avalanche? The tent wasn't buried, and the slope doesn't fully support it. Weather phenomena? Possible disorientation, but not the trauma. Hypothermia? Explains death, not behavior. Violence? No defensive wounds. No signs of another group. Here is what investigators are certain did not happen. They were not attacked. They were not pursued. They were not forced out by another group. Whatever caused them to leave did not follow them. Decades later, the case was reopened. This alone is unusual. Cold cases are revisited when new evidence appears. Here, there wasn't any. What existed instead was unresolved doubt. Modern analysis brought better models and cleaner language. Natural explanations were refined. But even then, the conclusion was careful. No theory accounted for every fact. The case was closed again, with uncertainty intact. That rarity is why this event is still cited today. Not because it's sensational, but because official records almost never admit this much ambiguity. Most historical investigations aim for resolution. This one documents its failure to reach it. The files don't hide confusion. They preserve it. Officials recorded injuries, timelines, and locations. They documented what happened after the tent was cut. But they could not explain the moment before. The moment when trained, rational people made a choice. That sealed their fate. History rarely leaves that gap exposed. This case does. This is why the story doesn't fade. Not because it suggests something extraordinary, but because it reveals a limit. A point where evidence stops being helpful. Where behavior stops making sense. The files are closed. The theories are written. But the moment that mattered most was never explained. And it's still missing.